everybody. Welcome back to the latest edition of Terrace Talk. Disappointment for Norwich City at the weekend, a 2-1 home defeat against Burnley. But opportunity knocks, of course. The nature of the Championship, we're now hitting this Christmas schedule, lots of games coming up, and it's the long old trip to Sunderland on Saturday. Looking forward to it. It's another opportunity to try and get back to winning ways, but it's going to be difficult because, of course, Sunderland are flying high near the top of the Championship. With that, delighted to be joined by Paddy from the Roker Report to give us a little bit more of a lowdown on the Black Cats. Paddy, first and foremost, really do appreciate your time this evening. Obviously, great to have you back on the channel. And we're talking a bit more positively, I suppose, around your team this season. This time round, if we just take it back to this time last year, 16th place in the Championship in terms of the end of the season. Obviously, without a manager for quite a long spell as well. I think when we spoke, you just got rid of Mick Beale and you then didn't appoint a new manager at all until June when you brought in Regis Bris, and everything since then seems to be quite positive. So, I mean, I suppose taking it back to the summer, what was the expectation? What was the feeling at that point? Because I'd imagine after the back of last season, it would have been a little bit different to where you are now.
Yeah, I mean, it was a massive relief, to be honest. It took us, we sort of took our time getting a new manager in. I was kind of pleased though, because, I felt like we, going back to sort of get sacking Tony Mowbray and then kind of rushing to bring in Michael Beale, and obviously, that just kind of, that never got off the ground, and that always kind of felt like it was doomed from the start. So, yeah, Regis Bris, he's been in, as I said, in charge since June. Didn't know what to expect. Didn't know a great deal about him. Knew that he had a decent record over in France. It got to the point where I think sort of players got sold above his head at his previous club, and that was kind of, that was kind of the beginning of the end for him over there. But yeah, knew very little about him. He kind of came in and he made it clear with what sort of style he wanted to play. He wanted to kind of build on the good youth setup what we have at Sunderland, and he wanted to have us playing with a high press. And yeah, just to kind of just get in teams' faces, really, which, sometimes last season we were so slow when we were carrying the ball forward. But he came in and, with, one or two additions, he's transformed the way we play. And, the results kind of speak for themselves. I mean, 21 games and only 3 losses. It's better than I think even the most optimistic of Sunderland fan could have hoped for, really.
Yeah, as you mentioned, 2 points outside the automatics at the moment. Got a 6-point buffer to 7th in the playoffs. I mean, all feels pretty positive from the outside. So what's it been like living through that? I'd imagine at the start of the season, you're winning all those games. And at one point, it looked like you were going to walk away with the league. And then you had that little bit of a dip of form and now have a pretty good spell again. So what's the roller coaster emotions been like so far this season?
It's been brilliant. I mean, we've kind of been taking each game in its stride, really. And even when I think our worst run was 2 defeats in 3, and it was 2 away games lost in very similar circumstances. And it was a case of we weren't getting outplayed. It was individual mistakes what were costing us, and it kind of feels like we've sort of cut that out of our game, and it's been brilliant, really. I mean, we're finding ways to win games from all different sort of scenarios and situations, really. I mean, in the last week, we've picked up 7 points from losing positions, and for a long time, when we fall behind, that would be it. But to do it, we've come from behind to win twice in a week, and then we got like a 94th minute equaliser against Bristol City, and yeah, it just feels like we've got a very different sort of mentality this year, and I think that's all down to the new manager. He's come in and he's made us a tougher team to beat, and like I said, the results are going to show that.
Yeah, you mentioned having a young team. Do you think maybe the experiences of previous seasons, having to deal with adversity at different points, has maybe given them that kind of, I suppose, building block now for this season to sort of, when they're in those situations again and certain things happen that go against them, they've got the ability to overcome that, as kind of was the case at Swansea the other week, 2-0 down, 3-2 win. Obviously, maybe in previous years, you might have crumbled at that point.
Yeah, it's interesting because, we have a young core of a team. And obviously our club captain, Dan Neil, I think he's just turned 22 or 23. And he's got like 150 odd games under his belt. Same for goalkeeper Anthony Patterson. He's 22, 23. He's been ever present for the last 4 seasons now. So it's kind of a case of we did have not much experience, but now those players, because we've stuck with them, they've gained their experience. I mean, we went out and we signed Alan Brown in the summer, who I thought was a really good signing. Unfortunately, he's out injured until the new year, but it kind of felt like the club sort of learned that, it's great having a youth policy, but you do need that bit of experience. But at the same time, we were creating the experience ourselves by sticking with these players. I mean, to a lesser extent, Joe Bellingham. I mean, he struggled at times last season, but this year in that midfield, in kind of the midfield three, what we've kept for most of the season, I mean, he's been fantastic.
Yeah, I suppose you touched a little bit on Regis Bris' style of play in terms of sort of formation. Is there a settled sort of formation and sort of something he goes towards, or is he one of these managers that tinkers a little bit based on the opposition and maybe their style of play, or fairly settled?
I mean, yeah, it is quite settled, to be honest. He likes to go for a 4-3-3 and have like the three midfielders with sort of one sitting deep and two pushing on. Then we play with the one striker and then the sort of the left and right forwards are wingers. So yeah, we haven't changed that up too much, in all honesty. So I can't really see that changing much at the weekend. In terms of sort of the players we have available, I think there's the only player who was sort of back in the squad who we haven't seen for a while is Jan Paveda, who he pulled his hamstring back in October, but the press conference was today, and he's going to be available for the weekend, which is good because wingers is a position where we have struggled a bit this year because if we went from losing Clark to then we had Mundell, then Mundell got injured, and then Watson made his breakthrough, then Watson got injured. So, yeah, especially the left-hand side, it's been a little bit cursed. But no, I mean, we've got plenty of players there, and yeah, I can't see it changing too much at the weekend because he's not really, he's sort of a manager where he doesn't really do that. He kind of goes, I'm going to try and beat you with the way I know that my players can play best, really.
Yeah, of course, you touched upon a few maybe of the key names so far, but if you had to pick the sort of breakout star so far this season, who would you pick? I mean, obviously last season it was always quite obvious. Jack Clark was kind of the go-to, but this time around it feels like Sunderland are a bit more rounded. I mean, you've scored a lot of goals, but they seem to be shared about the whole team.
Yeah, I mean, our top scorers got 5 goals, but I think at the same time we have like 13 different goal scorers, which is it's a crazy number to say we're only in December. But I mean, standouts. I mean, Chris Riggs looked really good. Again, he's only 17. He's been quiet in the last couple of weeks, but he's an amazing talent, and I think we've just got to be careful that we don't overplay him like we did with Job last year. Job looks like a completely different player. We're playing him in a position where he's more suited, where he's playing a little bit deeper. He has a chance to kind of use his physicality a bit more and kind of get on the ball and make things happen that way. But yeah, I mean, there's a few. I mean, not so much a breakthrough, but Dennis Serkin, a left back. I mean, we've had him a few years now, but he has struggled with injuries. This year, I mean, he missed a couple of games with a knock, but other than that, he's fantastic. And some Sunderland fans do see he's one of the best left backs in the league. And yeah, I mean, I might be biased, but he's definitely up there. He's a fantastic player. So it's sort of as a particular breakthrough. It's quite hard to pick one, but if I had to, I'd probably say Chris Rigg because, I mean, he looked good last season, and from pretty early on, he got sort of trusted with one of those 3 midfield positions, and yeah, he's looked fantastic.
Yeah, I think if he escapes injury throughout his career, he's definitely sort of one that's going to go to the top. Certainly a very talented player so far. As you mentioned there, obviously the sort of season so far and all the positives from a lot of the individuals. Do you think this team collectively has got enough to push towards those promotion places come the end of the season? Obviously, we've still got a lot of the campaign to go. And I know this time, maybe last year, Sunderland were in around the top 6 mix and then obviously had a little bit of a drop off. Do you think you've got kind of the players now and the experience to navigate a route to at least try and secure a top 6 finish?
I think so, yeah. I think you mentioned there how we were in a similar position this time last year, but I feel far more confident with this group of players than I did last year because it just felt like last year we were winning games, but there's been a lot of games this season where we've looked quite comfortable. Last year, I felt like we never really had that. And then when we did lose games, we'd lose convincingly. Out of the 3 games this year, I mean, we were, it was individual errors at Watford and Plymouth. And then at Sheffield United, we played really well, miss a penalty, and then, they bring on the fresh pair of legs and they get the winner. So, I think this time round, I think there is the quality there. I think the January window is going to be big. I think we said earlier in the season that if we were kind of around basically where we are now, if we're sort of top 4 by the time the window opens, which, hopefully we will be with the games we have coming up, that it'll sort of have a big influence on the kind of players we go for in January. And I think if we do kind of go out there and maybe, I'd like to see us bring in maybe some more fullback cover and maybe another winger just because of the injuries what we've had. And, you know, if we do strengthen the right way, then yeah, I honestly think we are a good shout for the top 6. And, you know, to be still only 2 points off the top 2 with Christmas around the corner, I mean, it's fantastic because you look at the teams around us. I mean, you know, Sheffield United just come down, Leeds, strong squad, Burnley, you know, another team who've just come down. But out of those 3 teams, we've got 4 points off them so far this season. Now, we beat Burnley earlier in the season. We were fortunate against Leeds, but at the end of the day, you know, we were good value for our point. So yeah, I think so. I think a couple of additions in January, maybe getting some of the players who are injured up to full fitness, then yeah, I think it's going to be an exciting second half of the season because the first half's been brilliant.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think Sunderland might have what it takes this year to sneak in there. Home form seems to have been a pretty key part of your season so far. I was looking yet to lose at home. Obviously, you mentioned there the Leeds game and obviously just narrowly escaping a defeat on that particular game. But 6 wins, 4 draws. What's the sort of feeling, the emotions around the Stadium of Light this year? Because I know from previous experiences of being there, when it's rocking and it's full and everyone's on board with something, it's a really difficult place to go.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a long time coming that it's actually been a bit of a fortress because it's our sort of last couple of seasons in the Championship and even in League One, we would struggle to break teams down, and that would result in us drawing a lot of games and just having very frustrating afternoons out. But yeah, so far this season, I mean, you know, the draws we've had, I mean, you know, the Leeds one was kind of last ditch piece of luck. West Brom, you know, they seem to draw to everybody, so that was a kind of a nailed on draw anyway. So yeah, no, it's been good. I mean, I was there for the Middlesbrough game back in September, and it was absolutely bouncing. It reminded me of sort of the playoff game against Sheffield Wednesday a couple of years back when the place was just bouncing. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of, you know, Bris, he mentions a lot about how the fans are important, especially at home. You know, when we get these crowds and we welcome teams to Sunderland, and that's obviously proven to be the case because, you know, 10 home games in and still unbeaten. It's good testament to what we're made of.
Yeah, I suppose moving it forward a little bit now, talking around this game, there's a few kind of individuals within the 2 camps that have played for both clubs. Obviously, Patrick Roberts, not an overly notable name in terms of Norwich, just a couple of appearances to his name. But the one in the Norwich camp, which had a pretty positive season, winning promotion with Sunderland, of course, is Callum Doyle, on loan with us from Manchester City, had a loan spell with Sunderland from Manchester City. 44 games, 1 goal for the Black Cats. I mean, how's he sort of remembered by Sunderland fans? I suppose what sort of reception will he get on Saturday afternoon?
Yeah, I mean, he'll be remembered fondly because he was a brilliant player. I mean, he was only 18 when we signed him. It was the promotion season from League One, and even at that age, you kind of think, yeah, you think he's going to end up playing, at least be comfortable in the Championship, because he just looked like he had all the key elements of what being a good defender is in the Championship, even at that age. But yeah, I mean, he was a good player. I think he did kind of get overplayed a bit too much, unfortunately. But that was purely because it was a bad season for our centre halves. We had a lot of injuries and a lot of players out of form. So I think he did get overplayed a bit more than we probably would have hoped. But yeah, he was a good all-round player. And yeah, it's good to see him being a regular in the Championship because we kind of knew from even 2-3 years ago that he definitely had the quality to be up there.
Yeah, he's certainly settled in well at Norwich. I suppose with that, just intrigued to get your take on Norwich from afar this season. Obviously under new management, sort of veered in a completely different direction from last season where they sort of pipped into the playoffs on sort of the final few games. Yeah, from afar, what have you made of their season so far?
Yeah, it seems a little bit sort of, it's funny because when I go like a while without looking at the table, I always assume you guys are higher. And then I noticed you're sort of like 10, 11 points behind us. And I know that you obviously gave Burnley a decent game at the weekend, but I mean that just goes to show how sort of tight the Championship is. I think when you were leading, you were about 8th, and then when you got beat, you were back down to 12th, which just goes to show how sort of tight it is. But no, I mean I always think of Norwich as it's a team where always tough to play against. You know, I mean we down at Carrow Road last year. I mean you kind of caught us on a pretty bad run, but yeah, I mean it's always a tough fixture. I think it's always going to be a game where you never kind of take it for granted, and yeah, I still fancy you guys to be. I mean, at the very least, sort of top 10. I think there's a long long way to go. There's over half the season to go, still plenty of points, and there's going to be a team from the sort of mid-table, bottom half who kind of makes a break for it. And I think with the players you've got, I wouldn't be surprised if you guys are up there come May.
Yeah, certainly going to be intriguing. Before we get your prediction, any sort of, you mentioned there, Paveda potentially being back available. Have you got any other key players or any injury suspensions that Norwich fans be wary of?
None from recently. We've got Tom Watson, who he's out for, he'll not be playing. But other than that, I think Paveda's the big one who's going to be back, who we've not seen for a while. I think defensively, the only kind of debate is we might put Luke O'Nien in alongside Chris Mepham at centre half, or he might stick with Dan Ballard alongside Mepham. But basically, the back four is going to be pretty much, it'll be Hume, Sirkin, Mepham, and then either O'Nien or Ballard. Other than that, I can't really see there being too many changes, but it'll be nice to see Paveda back in the squad, because obviously he picked up a knock when he came, and then I think he played like 20 minutes. He came off the bench and he pulled his hamstring and he went off again, and we haven't seen him since. So it'll be nice to have a bit more attacking options on the bench on Saturday. Yeah,
Norwich be wary of all those. I suppose with that and every bit of context we've spoken around during this show, how do you see the game unfolding on Saturday? I mean, sort of statistically, Norwich not great on the road, Sunderland very good at home. Look at the form table and sort of recent games. It would all probably lend itself to a Sunderland win. Do you see it unfolding that way?
Yeah, I do, to be honest. I think Sunderland will win, but I think it'll be close. We've started to kind of leak goals in recently, so I'm not expecting to keep a clean sheet. So I'll probably go 2-1 Sunderland. I think it's going to be quite close. I think we might take the lead, maybe get pegged back, and then maybe a second half winner. But I think it'll be pretty close to call. I don't think either team's going to walk away with it. I think it's got the makings of that kind of. There'll be the odd goal what wins it, I think.
Yeah, we'll see what we get. Paddy, of course, before we round off, do you want to plug where people can find you and Roker Report on socials, YouTube, etc., wherever it might be?
Yeah, so we have our Roker Report podcast that's on Spotify. We're online at rokerreport.com at SB Nation, and then we also have all of our articles go on our Twitter and Facebook pages as well.
Good stuff. We'll link, of course, all that good stuff down below. Paddy, I do really appreciate your time coming back on the show this evening. Great to have you back. And, of course, we'll be looking forward to this game on Saturday, a long old trip for Norwich just before Christmas. Of course, I imagine most of those Canaries fans are making that trip will be hoping for a little bit of festive cheer. But as we've outlined there, the Black Cats are not going to be an easy test. So intrigued to see what we get. Of course, we'll have all the usual content across our channels leading up to this game. We've got the press conference up already with Johannes Torp from yesterday. Me and Colin done a little preview as well this lunchtime, so well worth going and checking that out. And of course, we'll be making that trip, so you can join us at 2 p.m. for Team News Live across our YouTube channel. So come and join us for that. With that, we're going to sign off. Of course, Merry Christmas to everybody. This will be the last one of these before Christmas. Wishing you a happy and healthy Christmas, and of course a happy New Year. So we'll see you for the next one of these. Of course, a busy old Christmas schedule. So we'll see when that will be. So thanks for joining us.